All right, we are live, and we are going to talk today about the busyness epidemic. Right, I think this is the busiest time in human history. I have no real basis necessarily for saying that, but I'm just going to claim it that it is. I think there's definitely lots of information and evidence that this is certainly the most. We've talked about this before too. Overwhelm and burnout people are experiencing them at really historic rates. And that started, I think, even before the pandemic, but it certainly has accelerated. And so what we want to talk about today is how to reclaim your life from that constant feeling of busyness. And as I put in the notes, I've fully bought in this idea that we're always supposed to be achieving more, this idea that we're always supposed to be busy. When I would slow down long enough to actually let my thoughts kind of settle, I could feel this gnawing sense of guilt. I could feel this sense of like, I'm supposed to be doing more. I feel this discontentment, and I would just want to distract myself, right? The way I'd respond to that is by, just doing more busyness. And a lot of times that busyness wasn't actually necessarily productive. I was kind of always moving and always feeling like I was distracting my mind. But it never actually satiated that desire, right? To feel like I was accomplishing the right things. And so we want to talk about today that there is a way to reclaim your life from this kind of frantic busyness, always so busy, to actually accomplish more, but to feel like you have more peace, to feel like you're accomplishing more of the right things, to have more fulfillment, and then to have more bandwidth to focus on people and causes that you care about most. So Mr. David Osk, what do you have to say about this topic?
It's funny that I think there's so many, people who would consider themselves, personal growth type people, right? They get up in the morning and, I'm on a mission. I've got stuff I got to do. I want to make some waves. I've got goals, all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I've shifted in the last few years in my mind is, and it's almost cliche, but, more isn't better. Better is better. And so I think this idea of being busy, although it sounds, great, and hey, let's just be real about this, right? The opposite of that, might be considered lazy or, that kind of thing, or just, hey, I'm kind of wasting my life here. So on some level, I value someone who is, getting things done, right?
For sure.
But there, as opposed to, I'm not doing anything and I'm just wasting my life watching Netflix or something, that kind of thing. So I gotta say, in the back of my mind, I'm wired, man, let's move the needle, let's accomplish things, let's make a dent, all that kind of thing. But at the same time, boy, we can sure start, getting overloaded and saying yes to the wrong thing. So I love this topic.
Yeah, we work with high achievers, like to think that, we are high achievers. We're, I think, men that are certainly driven to want to do big, bold things and want to accomplish, any given day. My schedule's pretty filled with things that are pretty rewarding and meaningful.
Yeah.
But more importantly, right, that they're filled with a lot of the right things, that I make sure that I have time that's scheduled out every day to spend with my wife and kids, time that's really intentional. And I put a pretty strict boundary around that time.
Yeah.
Time to go for walks and to have exercise, right? Time for prayer and to be, in the Bible and things like that. And there was certainly a season of my life where a lot of those things got neglected for this pursuit of just more.
Right.
So I think absolutely we are wired. We are happiest when we're achieving, but we're happiest when we're achieving the right types of things. I don't know if I've maybe mentioned it on here before, but in the Maheli Sheikh sent me high, as he was coming up with the flow state, where we experience our highest levels of productivity, we reach our fullest potential, but we also experience our greatest happiness. He started that whole endeavor of research around that, trying to understand happiness and trying to look at what led to people being their happiest. And I think he started with this premise or this notion that it was a byproduct of leisure, right? This idea of having worked hard, so now you get to enjoy all the fruits of that work. And what he found is that people were at their absolute happiest when they were pursuing epic, noble kind of goals, that they were on a greater mission. And it wasn't so much about reaching certain destinations. It wasn't about constantly hitting these goals, but it was that you were becoming more, right? You were stretching yourself in that process, stretching goals and stretching strengths and skills in your character really in that process, and having impact that really mattered. And so
Man, I
it's
love that.
amazing, right? When you're operating at flow state on a more consistent basis,
Yeah.
you will produce at your absolute highest rates, at what you're damn near, capable of,
Hmm.
and your happiness and joy. Like, and by the time that you're done with that, it's not going to deplete you. It's actually going to energize you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of what we want to get across is it's possible to create conditions that get you in pretty consistent flow state, and you will produce more, but actually be more relaxed.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience? Can you speak to that at all?
I actually had a discussion with a friend this morning about flow state. And, I think some people think, that's probably a myth. I wouldn't doubt if there's a large percentage of our population that, that think that, is there really something that I can lay my hands to, put my heart into day after day that I, find a real sense of satisfaction in, that I a lot of days I feel like I'm flying, like I'm doing things. Again, it's not, I mean, this is life, right? We don't want to paint some utopia picture here, but the majority of my time, now is spent doing things that I really, really love doing.
Yeah.
And why? Because, I've identified those things in me that um, are my highest good, the things that light me up, things that give me goosebumps, my strengths and so on. And, so I like the idea of finding the zone, finding flow state. Can you imagine if everybody did? I mean, talk about a shift in our culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, if anyone out there is, I mean, I don't know if it's HR, if you're running a business, if you could imagine your entire team operating at their greatest potential, and their happiness is going up simultaneously, right? So you have a team of people who are really fully utilizing their strengths and skill sets. They're doing it towards missions and objectives, right, that are really important to the overall organization and to them, because you've hired the right people, right? You've got a great culture, and they're fulfilled. And so they leave work. I mean, they love coming to work. They love the work they do. I think we've all encountered people like that, whether, it's an organization, or whether it's just a teacher that we've encountered, whether it's a coach that we've had, whether it's, just somewhere in life where someone, like, you can tell that they are exactly doing what they should be doing. They love coming to work every day, and they have a disproportionate amount of impact, right? They often end up really having this incredible impact on people, where they inspire people to go into, the field because of that. They have a passion for learning that subject. It's really fascinating. And we got Blake Brewer in the house. It's great to see Blake.
Yeah.
There's a man on mission right there.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding.
What have you seen? I see a lot of times where, again, I hear people talking about always being busy, and this busyness, though, distracts them from often making the very changes and growing in the way. So they often know, well, I know I should focus on my health, or I know I need to work on my marriage. I know I need to do these things, but they always have some excuse. And again, this isn't coming from a place of judgment. I get it, right? But oftentimes this busyness, it distracts them from actually doing the things they need to do to really fix, to heal, to grow in the areas that are most important to them. And the busyness will eventually, right, if they don't change that cycle, end up costing them significant things in life. It'll cost them, who knows, maybe a major health crisis, maybe it's a family catastrophe that didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
So how do you help people? What would you say to people to help them to actually take the time to slow down and be able to start to focus on the things that need to get done in order for them to start to thrive?
Yeah, I think the reality of it is that we often blow by phrases that we use. For instance, I'm going to spend my time doing this. Well, if you're spending your time doing things, kind of whichever way the wind blows, right? You've not predetermined those things that are most valuable to you. You're not only going to be spending your time, because it's limited, you're going to be spending your emotional energy. So I think I want to just kind of recap what you just said, right? If I'm doing things all day long that don't really light me up, by the time I get home, I'm going to be spent. Even if I want, to have a full heart when I get home from my wife and kids, odds are I'm going to feel really, really depleted. And so I think that, one of the things that I love, that you say is this idea of predetermining, based on, right, the things that I have identified in advance, my identity, those things that are valuable to me, my core values, all that kind of stuff, which of course your program ushers people through. But if you've not done that work, then it's kind of like good luck, whatever way the wind is blowing, meaning culture, meaning, I mean, it could be parents, it could be a coworker, it could be somebody that respect on a particular channel or a book even. It's like, well, I don't know what to think. I don't have the sense of, the self to really dial in on that. So they look like they're winning. I guess I'll, take their lead, that kind of thing. And some of that is normal and natural. And boy, I sure want to be listening to others, right? But at the same time, boy, now, that I've done the work to identify those things in me that are just awesome, right? The things that I've identified that I want to be a part of. There are very few days I might come home, honestly, like physically tired. Like I did a lot today. At the same time, I typically have a pretty full cup when I get home, right? Yeah. I've got bandwidth to offer, my wife and kids. And to me, that is, the most important thing, right? They are the most important thing to me. And I think that idea of spending needs to be kept front and center.
I'd love to go through, I know I've used the metaphor of rowing a boat, right? Or rowing a canoe, whatever you want to use here. I'd love to go through, right? If you go through these three processes and understand where I think people end up often feeling very busy, but somehow feeling like they're not really getting anywhere, right? The three mistakes that I think I see people, especially people that feel really driven. And again, we know happiness, achievement is an important part of happiness, but achieving the right types of things that are driven by autonomy and purpose, I mean, that's where you're going to really reach your peak levels of happiness. But so the first thing that I tend to see, so if you imagine you got oars in the water and, you're trying to row someplace, if you don't have a clear, consistent sense of direction, I know where I'm going, right? I know those things that have disproportionate value, and I'm consistently focused on those things, and I'm rowing. And it's that case in all areas of life, right? So it's not like I've got one arm rowing in this direction towards work, but then in my personal life, it's going in the complete opposite direction, and then I've got all these different things, and they're fragmented, right? They're pulling me in different directions. And so that means, right, if you've ever been in a boat and you've rowed in different directions, that leaves you spinning around in circles. You're putting in a ton of effort, right? But you're feeling like, why am I not getting further? And so it's really dissatisfying, right? Really draining. Can you speak to that at all? What would you say about that? What's it been like for you to feel like you have a consistent sense of direction, and how has that helped you to get further with your effort?
Well, and honestly, the metaphor there, I think, is just crystal clear. I mean, there's been so many seasons in my life when I've overcommitted to something, but it's not been because I really wanted to, honestly. Sometimes I might have, one oar being rowed at even half speed just because I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But I've not assigned meaning to it. And then on the flip side, I might be going full steam over here and almost even resenting the things that I want to be about because I've just not assigned meaning to that yet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating. It kind of goes, you can feel depleted even if you're doing the right thing because you've just not placed a value on it. You've not given it a vocabulary that says, I do these things because they are incredibly meaningful to me. I'm bringing my strengths.
The mindset.
So I like the idea of, again, identifying those things, whether it's, an oar that's just barely going or it's the wrong direction or even the right direction. It works, because if you want to course correct, right? I mean, back to the boat analogy, right? The course correction is exactly that. It's what's your course? Where have you chosen? It's not just a matter of, I want these oars rowing in the same direction. I want them rowing in the right direction.
Yeah. And people often feel, right, there's that need. They just need to be rowing, right? Yeah. They don't stop long enough. I often tell my son, he's 6 and he's busy. I mean, he's got a busy mind. He's going at breakneck speed oftentimes, right? And it's part of it's fun just to see his energy and his enthusiasm. Sure. But he tends to start making mistakes, right? He tends to start, accidents happen more often, right? He ends up in his schoolwork, he makes more mistakes. And so, I really try and work with him. Slow down. It's okay to just slow down, right? We need to sometimes allow our prefrontal cortex to kick in. So we're not just always running on adrenaline or emotion. Right. We're not reactive, to everything that's happening in our lives, but we're being more intentional. Right. When we take time, it's okay sometimes just to say, hold on, let me collect my thoughts. Let me be strategic in how I respond to this. And chances are, you will start picking a more clear direction and be more consistent with that, and you'll get a lot further. So the second mistake that I tend to see people, and you kind of alluded to this in what you were saying before, but people either intentionally or unconsciously, it's like they're trying to row against the stream, right? So there's going with the flow, but then there's like, hey, I'm trying to row, but I'm actively choosing responsibilities or work that clearly doesn't fit who I am or what's important to me, or I haven't figured out the mindset, about why this is important to me. And we know there's something called psychological reactance, right? When you start to feel like you have no autonomy, someone's telling you this is what you have to do. Here's your homework. Here's your assignments. Here's, your wife and all these different areas. Here's what you need to do. And you feel like you've got this laundry list of obligations. Even if you know those things are good for you, even if there's a part of you that says, I want to do these things. I want to make my wife happy. I want to do well at work. But it creates this resistance within you, right? And so you start to kind of create almost like a drag. And it takes so much more energy out of you, right? So you're creating, kind of this slow resentment towards these things, as opposed to when you start to go with the flow, right? You're consistently choosing things that are driven by autonomy and purpose. So like, I'm doing these things because they're important to me. It's a great use of my strengths, and I believe they have impact. All of a sudden, you'll notice that the rows, the strokes that you're putting in, are going to take you so much further and with so little, like, less effort.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh man, I think there was something that you said in there that really struck a nerve. So Parker and I were talking about, like he was telling me the other day, and he's 17. He's like, Dad, I'm just not feeling really motivated and that kind of stuff. Well, what I realized, and this is something I slip into, is when I just lose sight of those things that I value, and we got to course correct, right? If I fall asleep, I forget. So I got to get up in the morning with a clear sense of where I'm going. But what I start doing, and Parker did the other day, was kind of slipping into victim thinking. And it's like, oh man, I have to do these things.
Yep.
And all that kind of thing. So again, another Dr. Garrett phrase, right, is turning something, going from a chore to a choice. And
it's a game changer.
Yeah. And it's amazing. If you want anything good in life, I don't care what it is, it's going to be hard. It's going to be effort.
Yep.
Whether that's a relationship or building this house that I'm standing in right now, right? It's going to be hard. But what I think is really important is when I know why I'm doing something, when I've assigned meaning to it, right? Yep. Well, then it's no longer a chore. It's a choice that I am making. And guess what else too is I get to make it with a full heart. I get to bring to bear and put my stamp on it. I remember when we were building this house, before we put the drywall up, we ended up writing all types of things on the studs before we put the drywall up. So one day when someone comes in here and starts, moving walls and so on, they're going to know dates, the kids' names, our dogs' names, our favorite poems, scripture verses, all kinds of stuff. And what was fascinating is the bones of this house, right, have my stamp on them. And that's another metaphor. That's really cool. For everything else that we put our hands into. And the chore to choice can be just a quick perspective change.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you can change your entire day just with perspective.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm back in the game. But again, if you've not done the identity work, if you've not done the authenticity work to find out what's authored in me, those things that I value, the things I identify with, good luck with that. You're going to be blowing in the wind and feel like you're dragging a plow around your entire life.
Yeah. So I got to admit, when you said that you wrote the things on the studs, I was going to have a lame joke about, so you wrote it on you and Parker.
That's right.
But so true. There's an exercise that really I adopted or customized. I found it something that the Marine Corps does, where you simply stop throughout the day, either as you're getting ready to start something. You can set it up so it's kind of random, right? So you randomly are choosing, but you just stop for a moment to say, what am I doing? So you're becoming conscious of what it is that you're doing at that moment, right? We often operate on autopilot.
Yeah.
So you're stopping, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Right? So what's motivating me to do this? And then to what end, right? Where is this taking me? Is this leading to an end that I actually care about? And it is amazing when I stop to do that, how sometimes if I'm procrastinating, if I'm doing something with, half effort, if I'm dragging, kind of this sense of obligation and, kind of bitterness around, how that can really liberate. Because either at that moment I recognize, hey, I don't need to be doing this, right? This is not taking me where I need to go. So I release it and let it go. And then I focus on things that do matter. Or I've just connected my action to a higher purpose, right? All of a sudden now it's driven by a sense of, hey, this really matters to me. So my commitment to doing that thing with excellence and to really, being focused on it goes up exponentially. That exercise is really, to me, it's a game changer. And, we've seen, dozens and dozens of people it's had a profound effect on. So yeah, I love that.
I love the idea of, the higher purpose thing, this idea that we're being called forward, right? As a man of faith, that is something I absolutely believe and I cannot avoid. The word vocation, comes from the Latin word vocare, which means calling. It's like we're being called forth. And it's funny because even a lot of mundane, things that I do on any given day, they don't need to be mundane. In fact, and this might
totally agree.
This is a bit of an aspiration moment here, but when I understand this idea that I am actually working, for something, right? Further up and further in. Well, guess what? Ultimately, there are no mundane moments, and my idea of turning, kind of perfunctory things that I need to get done to run my business and various things that I'm into, it becomes a joy because it's the foundation, it's the bedrock where I get to act, within my highest good and see. See the David Osk, I say this all the time, see the David Osk shaped impact in the world.
Yeah.
And I would hope that everyone, would want to see, their shaped impact in this world.
Yeah.
And if that's,
I think they do. I think sometimes there's not a sense of knowing either how to identify that or again, sometimes the busyness distracts us so much, right? That it's like we're so caught up in the obligations that we don't stop to recognize like, hey, we can actually choose to do things that are really filled with deep purpose. And I love that sense, right? The person on mission, man on mission, to live that way, and even difficult moments, the mundane and those things, to have those suddenly fueled with mission is game changer.
So the idea that if I don't want to be busy, I need to say no to things. I don't think that's true or even realistic, because if you just start arbitrarily saying no to things, you're going to still be busy in your head being thinking, well, did I say no to the wrong things or yes to the wrong things? There's no real clear framework and roadmap to make decisions.
Yeah, good point.
So the busyness in and of itself isn't the problem, right? That's a symptom.
Yeah, well said. Right. Yeah. 100%. When you've predetermined, when you go into things knowing who you are, you've got that foundation of identity, right? It's so much easier to know what to say yes to, right? You say it, we've heard this over and over again. I started intuitively just saying yes to the right things. And I started, intuitively saying no to the things that clearly weren't a fit. And it's amazing, we've heard testimonies of people saying that they spend a lot less time having to correct the regret, the guilt, right? The damage they've done in relationships by putting their foot in their mouth, by saying yes to things that they really didn't mean, right? It's just, I said it to make this thing go away, right? To make this nagging go away or whatever it was, but I really wasn't intending to do it. So it's amazing when you can spend a lot less time needing to correct, right? Kind of making bad choices, making inauthentic decisions, and you start focusing and leaning in the right things. So the third area that I see where people tend to make mistakes and they get busy without necessarily being more productive is they haven't defined what their unique strengths are, right? And so if you think from a rowing perspective, and here's where I will acknowledge I'm not an expert in rowing, but I imagine there's certain, forms, or there's certain, everybody has a unique body and the way that they row. And so figuring out, customize, what is the way that I row that's the best utilization of my body type, of my strength? And if we apply this to life then, so it's not rowing, what are the strengths that you bring to the table, that are just really uniquely yours? So whether this is doing something like the Strengths Finder, or we love, really focusing in, we got stuff that helps character strengths. And how do you want to apply them? So you know exactly the form you're using, exactly the strengths that you have, and you put them to best use. And we've heard people say sometimes as they start to really do this, yes, that is who I am. That is one of my favorite statements in the coaching that we do, right? Is when people start making comments like that, because
Right.
they're applying their unique strengths in ways that has impact that they really care about. And it's so incredibly energizing and fulfilling.
Yeah.
So what do you think? And we often think that the strengths that we need to have are different than what we actually have, right? We're looking and comparing ourselves to other people. So we have a certain idea of what a rower, right, or a successful person, is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And so, it's something we see on social media. It's something we see in our neighbor. It's something we see in someone else. And so then we feel like we need to start becoming who we're not recognizing that, the way to maximize our productivity and fulfillment in life is by leaning in and appreciate that this whole time you have the strengths within you already, right? God has designed you in a unique way that when you start to use that and do it in ways that's really impactful, you'll get a lot further by putting a lot less effort in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh man, the strengths topic to me has just been life changing, and it's really exciting. When you think about people in our society that have uniquely made a difference, I don't care if it's Rembrandt or Edison or whatever it is, right? To look at someone and say, I know you naturally gravitate toward inventing things, right? I think Edison had 200 patents or something like that. No, that's not good. We need you to be over here, sowing fields or something, or try to steer somebody away from something that they're naturally inclined to do, right? Well, Rembrandt, boy, he sure wasted his time, didn't he? You know what I mean? Well, what is, when you kind of turn it up on its head, and I love to do that, what does that really say? If you allow someone to swim in their pond, as it were, right? Just to live their life, to operate in their strengths, and to feel really free doing that stuff, it's really stunning what can happen. And then, of course, you just see people's joy rise. I remember after I did some of the strengths work to really understand, the ones, again, this hierarchy of strengths that rise to the top.
Yeah.
I felt like I was unleashed to be more of me. I felt like I was given permission to be more of myself. And I really believe that those even closest to me felt the impact of that very, very quickly. And but yeah, strengths is oh my gosh, I could talk about that for a long time.
I see that. I mean, right. If I haven't, I've certainly said this on here before, but David Osk might be the most encouraging man I've ever encountered. Right, his ability to inspire and how that comes out naturally of you is really like next level. It's amazing. Thanks. And to see you embrace that, right? To see, you're constantly encouraging and inspiring other people, right? And you can see like the energy that you seem to have when you're doing it is off the charts. And so
it is.
Yeah, I know. For me, I think I've brought this up before too. That I'm an emotionally sensitive person, and I have emotional depth. And for a long time in my life, I really saw that as a detriment, as a liability. And so, it really is only maybe in the last several years that I've really started to see that as one of my superpowers, one of my great strengths. Right? It allows me to have these amazing conversations. Whether that's in organizational encounters where all of a sudden there's breakthroughs, right? And people are getting to the core of what's really, kind of clogging up the culture, or whether that's in, one-on-one encounters. And it really, I have conversations that are atypical, right? People don't always have because of that. And interestingly, I have a daughter that has this incredible emotional sensitivity. And so the thing is, right, if I'm not okay with really embracing who I am and the strengths I have, and I see those as liabilities, then I'm going to convey that to her, right? She's going to end up thinking this thing that part of who she naturally is somehow a liability, and she should disown that, right? And it's going to create a long journey for her to hopefully get to a place of accepting and embracing. Yeah. Now, there is a need sometimes, just as any strength, right? Some strengths can be, if used too much or become too rigid, they can become a detriment. So there is a process of needing to learn what is the best use of these, right? How can I channel the use of this in a way that is the best expression and, and things like that. But it's amazing when you start leaning into, what is the strengths you've been building, developing, right, throughout your life, and you figure out how to leverage those best. Again, it is just really amazing how much further you'll get with less effort.
So maybe to bookend just a little bit here on the busyness, right, with regards to strengths, what's fascinating is when your strengths are front and center and you act in those, you're a bit more efficient. There's a sense that you're
sure.
You're not second guessing, you're not procrastinating. And what I've found is when I work in my strengths, I accomplish more in a smaller amount of time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'm like, I like time blocking. So I'll have, I got 2 hours to do this, an hour to do that. And sometimes it's just 30 minutes or something, but I'm really amazed at when I, operate in my strengths and support those. And by the way, sometimes, I'll shoot a video or I'll do some writing of some sort. Well, supporting that strength sometimes for me is playing some music that just to kind of get me in that space. Okay, hold on, I can dial in here. I've got permission. I shut my phone off and get after it, and write something inspiring or shoot a video that's inspiring, that kind of thing. And but I think that the efficiency, part shouldn't be overlooked. And I'm finding that I have way more margin in my time and in my head and my heart, for that matter, when I operate in my strengths.
Yeah. And for anyone that is in a leadership position. So if you're a parent, if you're leading a team, you're, the ability to recognize the strengths of those, right, that you're leading, and especially the character strengths. Like, it's certainly one thing to talk about a technical skill. That's amazing to be recognized for that, for someone to really point that out, right, and to see that in you. But when you start to see someone's character strength, right, I see your generosity. I see your ability to encourage, and it is amazing, right? I see, when you start to speak to that character, it really is, that's the essence of, there's a few things that make up identity. Your character is certainly a strong part of that.
Yeah.
And so when you speak to that, and you're not just focused on the outcomes you produce, hey, you're really producing a lot of money for this company, appreciate that. But hey, you're leaning in, and your ability, whatever it is, right? I mean, I can try and come up with different examples.
Right.
But when you speak to someone's character, the level of impact that has, right, and how you will see that person light up, they will feel seen, they'll feel known, right, and you are giving them permission, as I know you love to say. I think that's so powerful, right, to use more of that, to really lean into that, and to recognize that as part of what makes them so valuable, special, and worthy. And it's really amazing. We have, right, a storytelling exercise that as people define their character strengths. Then we have everyone go around and whether it's in a family setting or in a business, and then have people talk about a time that they've seen, and there's been tears shed. There's some profound moments in that, as people are hearing other people reflect back, right, stories about those character strengths. So really, really awesome and fun stuff. So
yeah, it is.
So to wrap it up, right? We want people to be achieving. But we just want people to be achieving more of the right types of things.
Right.
And I know that saying right types of things is a little bit nebulous, but you got to figure out, right, what those right things are for me, what they are for David Osk, what they are for anyone else is unique to who you are. And so I think, but starting to have a language for that, so there's specificity, starting to be really, really clear. So as opportunities and distractions come your way, you're very easily in real time able to swat down, right, those distractions that are going to pull you away. They're going to deplete you of energy, right? They're going to deplete you of bandwidth, and start saying yes to the right things. And I promise you will get so much more done, and yet have so much more energy and time and bandwidth to focus on things that are really, really important.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Well, where can we send people to, just to, if they want more information on the True North Blueprint, the course that helps them dial in on that, and so on? Yeah,
I mean, certainly message us, here. We love, again, whether it's someone that's interested, or you just want to say hi, or whatever it is. We are very much people. So we love connecting and engaging. Yeah. Or you can go to the website at ag-thrive.com. That's under work. So there's going to be kind of a that will be more dialed in here soon, but it's a good place to connect and be able to contact us. So
it's awesome.
Well, we wish everyone just a very productive day, doing all the right things. And we wish you the ability to stop the busyness, right? It is incredibly liberating when you're able to stop just feeling like you constantly have to produce, but yet, you haven't really stopped to think whether or not you actually want to produce those things. So we're here to liberate you.
That's great. Thank you. It's great talking to you.